They don't care as much as you do. Perhaps that's how you feel in this relationship, or maybe you broke up with someone recently, and that's how it feels because the person you dated or the person you're dating is avoidant. My name is Alexis. I'm a relationship therapist and also a former dismissive avoidant. The reason you feel this way is probably because your partner or your ex is dismissive avoidant. I will explain what it means and the impact on the relationship, on your self-esteem, and the things you have to do or you should do if you want to move forward. Whether you want to get back with them or move on, it's important to understand those things because it's all about understanding what went wrong, your role and responsibility in this situation, and the things you need to do to, again, move forward and find or create a healthy, nurturing relationship with your next partner, who could be your ex. So let's understand the mindset of avoidance. And as I said in the intro, I used to be avoidant and sometimes I still am avoidant when you push my buttons. The thing is, avoidant, they value independence. This is the main trait of character, is that we grew up with this idea, I don't have to rely on anyone. I can do things on my own. We were raised with this idea of you need to develop a form of autonomy at a very young age, right? And the problem is that when you have this sort of mindset, it's hard to ask for help. It's hard to be emotional, to understand emotions. And intimacy feels like I'm losing myself. If I'm showing my weakness, if I'm opening up, that means I need someone, right? It goes against this self-reliance element. And so if you look at some studies, and this is from Ainsworth, who worked with John Bowlby, the father of attachment theory, the behavior stems from childhood attachment wounds. And so it's this idea of, at a young age, we wanted to connect. We wanted our primary attachment figure, our parents, our caregiver, to help us, to support us. But they didn't. That doesn't mean that we had traumatic childhood. I had amazing parents. I have amazing parents. But to some extent, or the way I experienced it, is that I had to do things on my own or only rely on myself. And so when we start a relationship, when we go in a relationship, we have this sort of mindset of like independence first. Then we can talk about connection, but independence first. That's my safe space. That's my coping mechanism, is to be on my island. And that's why, if you're in the context of a breakup, they seem detached. Maybe you've been with them for many years and you feel like, have they been really in love with me? This relationship, was it something meaningful to them? How could they feel so detached? Like they don't care. And the reason they do is because we developed, which I thought was a superpower for many years, an ability to suppress emotions, to put everything at a distance. Right? If I suppress my emotions, I don't have to be vulnerable. If I'm not vulnerable, I'm not weak. Right? So the idea of like, this is a difficult time and I need to protect myself. So I'm going to shield myself. I'm going to withdraw. I'm going to distract myself. I'm going to, put myself at work, distract myself with other things. Everything that would prevent me from feeling those emotions. And so detaching is the best way to avoid the emotional pain. Now, it's obviously not the right way to deal with problems. As a therapist, I know well enough that dismissing emotions is the best recipe to go through depression or have burnout or different sort of conditions, because they will catch up with you. The point of dealing with a breakup or building a secure attachment style is to process those emotions. Emotions are just a signal telling you something is happening, but also something is triggering your attachment wounds, your insecurities, but it's something that's worth exploring. Because when you start exploring and looking at what's behind those emotions, then you can grow. Then you can be more confident. Then you can learn the tools and the techniques to have secure relationships, to be intimate with people if it's in the context of avoidant. And the thing is, what you have to understand in the context of a breakup, they will probably won't give you that closure. People put this closure element as the gateway for me to move on. I can only rebuild myself. I will only be happy or ready to date if I get that closure. Remember that closure means that you expect your partner to have an emotional intelligence, being able to confront ideas, to be vulnerable, to have difficult conversations, which are things avoidance hate doing, don't necessarily have the tools, and will shy away from. And so when you have these expectations around closure, it's very hard because the avoidant will probably never give it to you. They will disconnect. Of course, you might be thinking like it's super selfish. They don't understand all the harm that they're making, the pain that I'm going through. And maybe they're not. They're not doing it on purpose. But for them, it's just like, I don't want to deal with this situation. It's too hard for me. They wouldn't admit it's too hard. They wouldn't say it's too hard, but it's too hard for them to deal with this. And so they will avoid things rather than having this difficult conversation. Because it's going to be very hard for them to discuss those things, to tell you, or maybe sometimes, and that's also quite common, they don't even know why they break up with you. They will tell you things like, it's not working, or I can't give you what you want or what you need. And then it means like, okay, but what does that mean? And if you try to dig a little bit deeper, you won't get anything because they will withdraw. They will feel, I don't know, right? To me, when I have clients who have dismissive avoidant attachment style, this is the starting point. They realize, okay, it's not working. I feel I'm preventing myself from having healthy relationships. Therefore, I need to do something. That was my case. And so, unless they have this realization, unless they are actively trying to work things out, you won't get that closure. And so what would that create is a cycle of hope and frustration. You believe like, okay, we had something special. I know they were in love with me. And maybe we broke up, but now we're in touch. And I have expectations and things are going fine. And we do things together. But the problem is that it's not getting you where you want to be. You want to get back to what you had, but for them it's very hard. It's very slow. And by doing that, especially if the process is very long, you're going to get emotionally exhausted and confused. That's why when I help my clients getting back with avoidant partners, it has to be a couple of months max. We don't want to be in that phase of on and off, mixed signal, trying, super like walking on eggshells for 6 months. That doesn't make sense, regardless of how long the relationship was, by the way. Even if you were together for 10 or 20 years, you deserve to get meaningful progress quickly. That doesn't mean that you're going to get back together in a month or 2 months. Sometimes it takes more time. But you need to have strong signs that it's going in the right direction. If you don't have those strong signs, you are wasting your time because that person is not doing the work and is stuck in their ways of thinking, in their ways of doing, and you'll end up where you left, or you end up where they left, if they left you. So it's important for you, and maybe that's like maybe a pep talk. If you've been dealing with your partner for more than a month or two and you see no progress, either you're doing something wrong or simply there's no progress on their part. If you have any question and you're confused, have a look in the description. There are a few links, either if you want to work with me on WhatsApp or things to learn about dating avoidant. And so the problem with avoidance, we are quite reluctant to change. The thing is, change means there's something wrong with me, right? If you think of the opposite attachment style, anxious people, by default, they think something is wrong with them. Therefore, I would need to change because I'm not adequate, right? For avoidant, it's not that they feel superior, but in a way, accepting the fact that there's something wrong with them is not their default ways of thinking. Because if I accept there's something wrong, again, their weakness is vulnerability, right? And I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to. I know I'm not perfect, but deep inside, I like this idea of there's nothing wrong with me. Because that means I don't have to do the work. And so also the problem with avoidant is this element of self-awareness, because they dismiss things. They're not self-aware. They're not curious about what's going on because they don't feel it. Sometimes a breakup, a relationship can force and push people to be more self-aware, to realize that what they are doing, self-sabotaging the relationships, are preventing them from having healthy relationships. Because remember, we all need and want to be attached to a primary attachment figure. This is in our, one of our primary needs, to be attached to someone. And in my case, that's what I realized when I was in my 30s, like figuring out, like, hold on, maybe there's something to explore here, because I feel I can't connect. I only have shallow relationship. Maybe there's something wrong. Maybe there's something I need to explore. But I was very curious about how I could improve myself and be better than I was yesterday. If you're dating someone who thinks there's nothing wrong with me and I will never change, you have your answer. There's no future with them. Because if they don't want to change and they don't think there's anything wrong with them, where's the resolution? How would you be able to work through things together? So yes, there's an element of maybe you had some what we call protest behaviors in the relationship because they triggered you by taking space, by leaving the relationship as a way of dealing with problems. And maybe you overreacted, maybe you were super emotional. But deep inside, it takes two. Remember, it takes two for a relationship to work. So yes, you can develop a secure attachment style, and developing a secure attachment style is the best way to have healthy and nurturing relationship. That's, studies have shown, you can look online, this is the best predictor of a relationship satisfaction. But remember, few avoidants are willing to confront their fears. So it's one thing, one sign you have to assess is this: are they willing to challenge their beliefs around themselves? The reason they distance themselves is about self-protection. Okay, as I said, we want to be self-reliant. Being vulnerable is bad. It's a sign of weakness. And so when they withdraw, remember, it's not about you. It's not because you're not good enough. It's not because they feel superior. It's not because they feel they'll find someone else. They'll find someone better. No. They're scared of the relationship. They're scared of intimacy. They are scared about commitment. Because if I commit to someone, if I depend on someone, again, it's going against this idea of self-reliance. Depending on someone depending on myself, that's too much. Where's my freedom in there? And so for them, rather than thinking, what we call interdependence in relationship, they see it like, okay, being in a relationship, that's being codependent. I will lose myself, my identity in this relationship, which is the definition of codependency. But for them, being in a relationship, being committed to someone, sharing things together, for them, that's bad. That's toxic, almost. And I can't handle that. I don't have the tools. I don't speak the same language, and it feels overwhelming. That's why I distance myself. So it's self-protection. It's not about rejection towards you. It feels like rejection, but it's not. And so what you have to understand is you have to step away from this one-sided dynamic. Sometimes when we deal with an avoidant, we overinvest. They disappear, they dismiss us. So we feel, it's just because I haven't really expressed myself enough. Or maybe the message was not strong enough. Maybe I need to do more. And we start this form of escalation. For example, let's say we go no contact and we break no contact and we send one message. and they reply and it's quite cold and distant. But we send another one because we feel like maybe I haven't managed to find the button to press. So it's just a question of a wording or things I could say. And so we send another one, but they don't reply. And so we feel, okay, hold on. So maybe that's not enough. So we send another one and stronger. And we increase the level of intimacy, the level of the emotional level of those messages. And we make things worse. Because the more we do it, the more they pull back. The more they do it, the more we feel, I'm investing. And you see, what is very interesting with people is that when we invest in something, we value that things more. It's called the cost-sunk fallacy. So it's a cognitive bias, well documented, and some brands are using it. It's this idea, the more you invest into something, the more you will value that thing. And so when you overinvest in a relationship, and when you think about it, it doesn't make sense, because when you overinvest, that means that there's no reciprocity. It's a one-sided thing. But in our mind, because scarcity makes us want more, because the lack of connection makes us, I want more of that because there's a scarcity element, we get somehow addicted to that, then we value the relationship more than what it is, than what it represents. So the thing is, understand that you have to break free from those patterns. If you feel that it's a one-sided thing, if you feel that you're over-investing, that's a sign it's not a healthy relationship. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments section. There's also a link to some materials if you're dating an avoidant and want to see clear, want to figure out what to do next. You can also share it to a friend, this video to a friend, and I'll see you next time. Take care.